Hey Maisie, I've been meaning to get this book to you forever. Horton Hatches the Egg, and I think you might be a little old now, but I'm going to read it to you anyway, sweetie pie. So, Horton Hatches the Egg by Dr. Seuss. And pardon the video if it, wanders, because I'm reading and holding a phone. Sighed Maisie, a lazy bird, hatching an egg. I'm tired and I'm bored and have kinks in my leg from just sitting here day after day. It's work, how I hate it. I'd much rather play. I'd take a vacation, fly off for a rest, if I could find someone to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free. Note that her spelling of her name is much different than yours. You are definitely not a Maisie bird. Then Horton the elephant passed by her tree. Hello, called the lazy bird, smiling her best. You've nothing to do, and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on my egg in my nest? The elephant laughed. Why, of all silly things, I haven't feathers and I haven't wings. Me on your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am, and I'm so immense. Tut, tut, answered Maisie. I know you're not small, but I'm sure you can do it, no trouble at all. Just sit on it softly. You're gentle inclined. Come be a good fellow. I know you won't mind. I can't, said the elephant. Please, begged the bird. I won't be gone long, sir, I give you my word. I'll hurry right back, while I'll never be missed. Very well, said the elephant, since you insist. You want a vacation, go off, fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg and try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful, I mean what I say. Toodaloo, sang out Maisie, and fluttered away. The first thing to do, murmured Horton. Oops, hold on. Let's see. The first thing to do is to prop up this tree and make it much stronger. That has to be done. Before I get on it, I must weigh a ton. Then carefully, tenderly, gently he crept up the trunk to the nest where the little egg slept. Then Horton the elephant smiled. Now that's that. And he sat, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. And he sat all that day, and he kept that egg warm. He sat all that night through a terrible storm. It poured, and it lightning, it thundered, it rumbled. This isn't much fun, the poor elephant grumbled. I wish she'd come back 'cause I'm cold and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget. But Maisie by this time was far beyond reach, enjoying the sunshine way off in Palm Beach, and having such fun, such a wonderful rest, decided she'd never go back to her nest. So Horton kept sitting there day after day, and soon it was autumn. The leaves blew away, and then came the winter, the snow and the sleet, and icicles hung from his trunk and his feet. But Horton kept sitting and said with his knees, I'll stay on this egg and I won't let it freeze. I meant what I said and I said what I meant, an elephant faithful 100%. Poor Horton. So poor Horton sat there the whole winter through, and then came the springtime with troubles anew. His friends gathered round, and they shouted with glee, Look, Horton the elephant, up in a tree. They taunted, they teased him, they yelled, how absurd. Old Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird. They're so mean. How rude. They laughed and they laughed and they all ran away. And Horton was lonely. He wanted to play. I meant what I said and I said what I meant. And Elephant's faithful 100%. Oops, that's the page. Hold on. Nope, we read it. Hold on. Oh, who's that in the bushes? Hold on. No matter what happens, this egg must be tended. But poor Horton's troubles were too far, far from ended. For while Horton sat there so faithful, so kind, 3 hunters came sneaking up softly behind. He heard the men's footsteps. He turned with a start. 3 rifles were aiming right straight at his heart. Did he run? He did not. Horton stayed on that nest. He held his head high and he threw out his chest. And he looked at the hunters as much as to say, shoot if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said and I said what I meant, and Elephant's faithful 100%. Gosh, these pages are sticking together, kiddo. But the men didn't shoot, much to Horton's surprise. They dropped their 3 guns and they stared with wide eyes. Look, they all shouted, can such a thing be? An elephant sitting on top of a tree? It's strange, it's amazing, wonderful new. Don't shoot him, we'll catch him. That's just what we'll do. Let's take him alive. Well, he's terribly funny. We'll sell him back home to a circus for money. People are so rude. Horton in a cage. Men toting Horton. And the first thing he knew, they'd build a big wagon with ropes on the front for pullers to drag on. They dug up his tree. They put it inside. With Horton so sad, he practically cried. We're off, the men shouted. And off they all went, with Horton unhappy 100%. Up out of the jungle, up into the sky. Up over the mountain 10,000 feet high. Then down, down the mountain, down to the sea went the cart with the elephant, egg, nest, and tree. Goodness gracious. Then out of the wagon and onto a ship, out over the ocean, and ugh, what a trip. Rolling and tossing and splashed with the spray, and Horton said day after day, I meant what I said and I said what I meant, but oh, am I seasick 100%. Poor Horton. After bobbing around 2 weeks like a cork, they landed at last in the town of New York. All shore, the men shouted, and down with a lurch went Horton the elephant, still on his perch, tied to a board that just could scarcely hold him. Bump! Horton landed, and then the men sold him. Sold to a circus. Then week after week, they showed him to people at 10 cents a peek. They took him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, Chicago, Hawkwen, and Washington, too. To Dayton, Ohio, St. Paul, Minnesota, to Wichita, Kansas, to Drake, North Dakota, and everywhere thousands of folk flocked to see and laughed at the elephant up in the tree. Poor Horton grew sadder the farther he went, but he said as he sat in that hot, noisy tent, I meant what I said and I said what I meant, an elephant's faithful 100%. Then one day, oh, wait, what am I going? One day, the circus show happened to reach a town way down south, not so far from Palm Beach. And dawdling along way up high in the sky, who of all people should chance to fly by? Oh, but that old good-for-nothing bird, Runaway Maisie, still on vacation and still just as lazy. And spying the flags and the tents just below, she sang out, "What fun! I'll go to the show." Oh, that bird. And she swooped from the clouds through the open tent door. "Good gracious!" gasped Maisie. "I've seen you before." Poor Horton looked up with his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, what do you think happened? There rang out the noisiest, ear-splitting squeaks from the egg that he'd sat on for 51 weeks. A thumping, a bumping, a wildlife scratching. "My egg!" shouted Horton. "My egg! Why, it's hatching!" About to get good, girl. "But it's mine!" screamed the bird when she heard the egg crack. The work was all done. Now she wanted it back. "It's my egg!" she sputtered. "You stole it from me. Get off of my nest and get out of my tree." Poor Horton backed down with a sad, heavy heart. But at that very instant, the egg burst apart, and out of the pieces of red and white shell from the egg that he'd sat on so long and so well, Horton the elephant saw something whiz. It had ears and a tail and a trunk, just like his. And the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" They looked and they stared, and their eyes popping out. They cheered and they cheered and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything like it before. "My goodness! My gracious!" they shouted. "My word! It's something brand new. It's an elephant bird!" And it should be like that, because Horton was faithful, and he sat and he sat. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. And they sent him home happy 100%. That end. And I love you, Maisie. And you know her like that bird. So I love you.